In this video we will explain the plastic forming machine. First, make sure that the power source is connected to the machine. Then make sure that the air connection is connected to the machine. And make sure the pressure reaches 7 bar. Then the machine is started from this switch. Make sure there is no danger around the machine. This is the default mode of the machine. Heaters in the beginning. The holder is at the bottom. The lower mold is at the bottom. The upper mold is at the top. When running, then loading the interface, the holder will move up to allow the plastic sheet to enter and start forming, preparing the required vacuum. After that, there is an alarm here. No raw material. At the beginning of operation, the raw material plastic sheet must be placed. Until startup, we press the reset button in this control panel. These lamps are for each electric vase. The voltage for each of them is supposed to be 220. A represents the amperes per phase. This machine works on a 3-phase electricity source. This is the on/off switch. This is the emergency switch. For any emergency, press it to deal with it after solving the problem. The button is wrapped mold control switch, responsible for the ascent of the lower mold. The holder comes down for easy installation and removal of the molds. Thus, the start button is the button responsible for starting the cycle. This is the stop button, which is responsible for stopping the machine. This is a button to control the speed of the sheet pull. The speed can be increased or decreased to the lowest possible value. Now we will explain the work screen. This interface is available in Arabic and English. First, the home page. The admin icon is for the company engineer. The following icon tests is to perform the required tests for the machine. The necessary tests are performed through it. Holder button, to test the ascent and descent of the holder. Lower mold button to test the rise and fall of the lower mold. Blow button to test air pumping. Internal blowing inside the mold. To separate the sheet from the mold. Vacuum button to test air suction. The valve responsible for suction. When testing the heaters, we notice that the heater is currently not activated, because holder is up. The holder must come off first, to allow the heaters to move. When the heaters reach the holder, we notice that the holder is closed. Therefore, the heaters must be returned. Then the holder is lifted. On the second page, clamp forward, button. Clamp reverse, button. Clamp, button. Clamp up, button. The upper mold button is not activated. This is to prevent the holder from falling off. Then the upper mold button is activated. This is for security reasons. Thus, we have finished explaining the other interface of the tests icon. We go to the setting icon. In it, the machine's operating settings are adjusted. First, time date icon. This is today's date. The next icon, monitor. There are lights here that represent each sensor in the machine. Start button, stop button, emergency switch. We test the emergency switch, for example. When you press on it, you will notice that it turns green. When you turn the switch, it turns red. On the other page of monitor, we will notice here that the holder, for example, has 2 sensors, start and end. The starting are what are activated now, and the endings are not activated. So this is the default mode of the machine when starting up. On the other page, all these indicators are off. This interface shows us the status of the machine at this moment. Alarms, warnings, icon. It contains every alert that the machine's control panel senses of an error that occurred in the machine. In this case, there is no raw material. Thus, it gives an alert that there is no raw material to start the operation. When you press the reset button, it does not reset until the raw material is placed on its sensor. Thus, we come to the icon, enables. First, the clamp button and the up clamp button. It is the automatic part for withdrawing the sheet. This is the clamp that pulls the sheet. This is up clamp, it lifts the clamp to tighten the sheet. When you cancel the clamp, it automatically cancels the up clamp. When the clamp button is turned on, the up clamp button must not be turned on with it as well. The vacuum system button must be turned on when starting the machine. Otherwise the machine will not work until it is activated. Lower forming button, responsible for the rise of the lower mold of the sheet and the beginning of the formation immediately after the heating time is over, and do not wait until the heaters return and reach their starting sensor. Its benefit is saving time and higher productivity. But you must ensure that the height of the mold should not be higher than the height of the holder. That is, it should not exceed 2.5 centimeters above the height of the sheet so as not to collide with the heaters. Therefore, it is equal to the sheet holder. As for the upper forming, the heaters must be returned to the beginning, then the mold must be lifted and formed. This is preferred at high elevations of the mold, and it is 2.5 centimeters higher than the sheet level. Or it works with both the upper and lower mold system. Activating the upper forming does not necessarily mean activating the upper mold. But when I activate the upper forming, I can activate the upper mold because it allows the heaters to return and then the formation movement begins. Thus, we have finished explaining this interface. I can now work on the beginning of the formation. In this interface, the number of products required to be formed is entered. Then the machine stops immediately after completion and gives an alarm. Here the required value is placed. For example 5. Then reset the value, so that the machine can make the required number of this mold as you want. On the other page here, we have already done the lower forming. Any movement of the mold at the end of the heating time, the heating time, is set here. For example, 12 seconds. Lower mold rising time, that is, a delay in the mold rising for a certain period of time after the heating time has ended, that is, when the heating time 12 seconds is over. At this point the lower mold should come up and start sucking. But sometimes we need to delay the ascent of the mold for a certain time, that is, the heaters move for a certain time, 2 seconds, for example. When heating is finished, the heaters move back for 2 seconds. Then the lower mold goes up and then suction. It is possible at this moment that the heaters are in the middle of returning. Then the lower mold starts to rise and suction. This is what is meant by lower mold rising time. Vacuum delay time. It starts the suction operation at the beginning of the mold movement. That is, when the mold rises, suction begins with it. It is possible when there is a longer moving distance than necessary, between the beginning and the end of the mold moving distance. At this time, the suction is delayed for a certain time to start halfway through the moving distance. Its benefit is that it starts suction before the mold rises to the end, to prevent the plastic from blowing up so that it does not hit the heaters. After that, vacuum time. It is the time in which the material is sucked. After that, cool time. It is the time responsible for cooling the air or water of the machine. After that, blow time. It is the time required to blow air into the mold from the bottom until the plastic sheet is separated from the mold. After setting the required values for this mold, make sure to save. On this page there is a list of 20 products. Their formation values can be saved on the machine. Therefore, when placing product 1, we can name him
أحمد.
for example. It must be saved. Therefore, the product named
أحمد
retains these values, but when choosing another product and calling it by another name, then we save. These are his values. So, this is the list for pre-saving the values of each individual product. So, this is the explanation of each part of the machine through this interface.